There we go. Now we got some audio. That's good. So, alright. So first things first, what I'm doing right now is I have the rocket here that is almost completed, and I am going to be applying a decal. I printed this out on my printer using a clear decal paper, and I have a rough idea of where I want it to go, which you can see from the cell phone that I got turned into an IP camera over here. And this is just a regular printout with some tape that I was looking at to get an idea where I want it. So I'm going to get ready to apply the real deal. So the first step is to cut off the excess. Now, I have it sitting off over here, which is actually covered up by the other doohickey, but I have warm water over here, which is going to separate the decal from the paper here. And then once that's separated, I'll bring it over here and drop it on this guy. But first, we're going to get this template out of here because we don't need that anymore. And a good rag. Every rag I have is basically my son's old socks and underwear. Great reuse of it, right? I don't think you really want to donate that type of stuff, huh? So we'll take the whole area and just wet it. Just gives it a surface to adhere to, basically, without getting it too wild. And then we are going to go ahead and drop the decal in. And while the decal is doing that, I have an item over here that I want to grab. Just like when you're applying a decal to a car or anything like that, you want to have something to squeegee it. And we're still just waiting for this to start separating from the paper. Actually, you know what? That did not go at all as it should have. Major insta fail. I believe there is a step missing. So we will ex-nay that because that is ruined, which is why we have multiple sheets of that stuff. So good deal. All right. Well, keeping with the phone wherever it is, bring this I mean, those water decal things are so delicate. As soon as I started to pick it up, it just disintegrated, basically. So, bummer on that. But that's how it goes. So what we'll do, make a little bit of space on this direction here. Because I'll be able to stand over to the side here. Let's go ahead and pivot this thing a little bit this way. Here we go. There. That way we can have my ugly mug in there too. So, what I have here is a new kit called it's referred to as Mayhem for the Rocketry Club's upcoming event here in November. And it's a unique kit that was made by Lock Precision, and they have a bunch of cool rocket kits. I actually have another rocket kit showing up tomorrow that I'll be building kind of in conjunction but along with this one. So basically I had just pulled everything out of the bag for this guy, so the initial things are getting, everything test fitted. Things are usually cut a little on the large side, so we have to find out where we need the sand, trim, everything else like that. And that's what we'll be starting with, is sanding. See that? Need to grab my extension cord over here real quick. More importantly, get a loop of it right there, so that way it doesn't drag me down. So with this, we have this tube. This tube is the motor mount. It's 38 millimeters in diameter, and it can take a 38 millimeter reload, basically, or an engine. And so what we're going to do is the shiny stuff on here, we're going to get rid of that. And that way, whenever I use epoxy to glue this thing together with the centering rings, then some of that glue will actually soak into the tube, which will give a stronger bond. There's two ways of going about removing this shiny paper stuff. You can, take and get the corner of it, just kind of like the can of biscuits, and peel it off. Or you can sand it. And for this application, just going to go ahead and work my way of peeling this thing off, because no one's ever going to see it. I'm not sure why they even put this layer on there whenever it's actually recommended to remove it, but that's how they do it. So we're just going to remove this layer of the good old shiny paper on here. I forget what they call it. Glassine, I think it might be the name of it. But removing it also does another thing. It makes it just a teeny tiny bit smaller in diameter. So if these rings weren't quite fitting, well, maybe they would fit now with that layer off, which still got to take, well, actually, it's tight. You can hear that clicking sound. Really tight fit. And you can see it even discolored the tip of it there from trying to mash that thing on there. So we need to open these up a little bit. And it's always best to, so this one's a little looser. But we're going to go ahead and now work on these, because we got to do a couple things here. One, it's clean out the centers so they fit over this tube correctly. But then whenever these things are assembled and on this tube, that goes into the bottom of this. So which means the outside of these need to be cleaned up so that it will get the job done. So for that, have our good old handy dandy Dremel. You could sit there with some sandpaper and your finger and just go around in circles, but power. And another good thing that is marking your shit, right? Right. So this guy with no hole in it, he's obviously goes in the middle, so I'm going to write an M on that for the middle. And these things are exactly the same, these two, but they serve different purposes. One goes on the top of the motor up here and has an eye hook mounted into it where the parachute cord connects to. So I'll go ahead and name this one F for forward. And then this one will be aft, and A for aft, since I'll use this on the tail end. So let's go ahead and we're just going to run around them a few times just to open up a tiny bit. Don't want to do a lot. It's better to do a little bit at a time and do it many times than do a whole bunch at once and realize you did too much. So that's still tight, but look at that. It actually is going in. We're actually really close. Yeah, this one is very close as well. And this one's perfect. And when you look at it, after doing that, you can see that there is no giant gaps between the tube and the inner ring. So the aft one is done, but we want these two to get a little bit more. It doesn't take much. Yeah, that one, it's a little rough there, but that's okay. That's working really good. Likewise with this one. So cool. Now we got those done. So now the question becomes, where do they go on the tube, right? Well, for that, really simple. Just set the tube down like so, and the only one that we really need to worry about is the middle guy, because as you can see, this rocket has two slots for two fins. There's the main fins and then some other fancy decorative fucking fins, right? Yeah, that's what we're calling them. But the ring needs to go in between the two fins. So we can just generally make a mark, and then we'll just make another general mark about right here. So we'll put the middle ring right here, and then the top ring will go right here. The camera flips it on me, so whenever I try to go one way, I'm going the wrong way. So now we got to take our centering rings, which the aft one would not be used yet. I'm saving that for near to last, because I actually am going to butt it up against the backside of the fins when the time is right. So, but we can generally place where these rings are going to go. You know, it's not an exact measurement. but you know, stick that guy right there, and we'll put this guy right here. Because what we'll do is we'll put some glue up around here and then bring it up, which will create a lip of glue around this that will then spread down and out. And we'll do that on both of these. So obviously the next thing is a little bit of glue. So for a little bit of glue, let's see about bringing this handy dandy webcam over here to get a closer view. Hopefully it doesn't bug out because, well, trying to use two cameras in here is a big pain in the butt, let me tell you. I went through some real malarkey trying to get this set up and going. See, that's a kind of a junk shot. So we got that going on. That's it's fuzzy. So yeah, you know, we'll work with it. We'll see. We'll get things how it turns out. Actually, you know what? We want something kind of in the middle of the road. So let's make something in the middle of the road. This rocket has a coupler piece, which I'll connect two pieces with, but right now it's going to become a temporary stand. And then I'll come out this way a little bit, so hopefully that gives a alright view of what I'm trying to do here. So now we don't need much because we can come in and do heavier fillings after the fact. We just want to get these things in place. So I have some epoxy here. Actually, not too much. I have a bunch on order from Amazon. That's actually 30-minute epoxy. Gives you a lot of time to work with. How about I get this out of my face? And yeah, that light's right there, so that sucks. But a little bit of this, we'll spread it around and we'll get one going. So we'll go ahead and get the middle one in place first. And so we got some resin. And I got this little, I don't know what the hell it's made out of. It's supposedly stuff that you can use with the people that you see making all the epoxy ornaments and little night desktop trinkets and stuff like that. And you know, the same stuff that's used to make the big old tables that are pretty neat. Come on. Actually, this bottle's getting pretty down there. I might go ahead and do both these rings at the same time. Alright. So, we got about equal parts dumped in here. It's a blob of junk. Good old globs of junk. And the best thing to use for this type of application, popsicle sticks. So here you go, popsicle stick, popsicle stick. So I got a little bit of epoxy down here in the little thing here, and so we mix that up. So once this stuff's mixed up, I basically have about 5 minutes before it does its initial cure. So you got to work a little bit fast with this. You got to do a small application, then you know it's a little bit easier. But whenever it's a little bit larger application or multiple things, then it's a little more, you know, can't screw around. So I'm trying to make sure this stays in the shot, but so I'm just rotating this while dabbing along above it because this stuff is going to run down for right now. And so just spread it around. About 3/4 of the way there. Spin it around. You can even come back and grab excess and pull that all around. Just like that. Then we bring it up to our mark that I mentioned earlier, roughly. And the fun part is trying to make this thing level. And, you know, eyesight it. That's where eyesight comes in. So that one looks okay. And we'll take and get this glob up here, spin it around our handy popsicle stick, and start spreading this around this top one. The top one, once I put the eye bolt in and have that connected up really good, I'll probably dump a bunch of glue on top of this thing whenever it's getting ready to go inside the main part of the airframe, because then it will adhere really well to the body of the rocket itself. Got that all the way around, so then we work it up a little bit. And try to get that looking level. Looks pretty good, looks pretty good. So now as you can see, it might be a little bit hard, but because of the way the shadow's lining out, but there's basically a bead going around the ring and the tube at this point. So because I peeled off that shiny layer, this glue is soaking in to this to the motor mount. And this is basically going to dry here in a few minutes and will give us our initial setup for the motor mount. So at this point, what I normally do, even whenever I'm using a little cheap Dixie paper bowl or whatever, is I kind of glop up all the glue into a corner or a side or something like that. That actually works pretty well on this thing for scraping it and getting it mostly out of the way. Because basically, so what I can do now is wait. You know, wonderful thing about gluing stuff, you gotta wait. Nice thing about 5-minute epoxy, you don't have to wait too long to start doing next steps. It still takes a good 24 hours for it to do a hard cure, so that it's fully ready to be, you know, stressed on and stuff like that. So while we have a minute to do that, the most important thing we do next is coffee. So while we have that going on, we have a couple fins. Now the neat thing about the fins is they're, you know, kind of designed. They slide in through the airframe. Here's the tab on it. This part here goes through the airframe, and this part rests on top. Is it actually outside the airframe? So that's what you see. This will touch the motor mount, and so basically what we do is you take some epoxy and you put it along the bottom, very bottom here, just, you know, a little bit of a glob, and then you go chunk and let it set and cure up to against the motor mount. You know, that you use that point in time whenever it starts getting you know, the 4-minute mark, whenever it's starting to stiffen up. That's whenever you adjust it to try to make sure that it's straight up and down, not leaning out. A fin that is like this, so if that's straight to you, and then you mount it to, and then, so obviously, like, think about aerodynamics. Straight air, straight down, things are good. But if this thing's tilted that's going to cause it to spin. Because you're catching air on the side. Think of it just like a fan blade. How a fan blade is a curve. Why is there that curve? To push air. Or depending if it goes in another direction, pull it. So right here, it's just now starting to get it jelly-like. So if you can see in here, up here in the corner, and touching it, it's not liquidy or anything, but it's still very sticky, very tacky. But it's starting to solidify. And whenever it's hard in here, then I can come back and tap around on this to see if it's the same. And if it is, well, we did a good job. So, now, what I want to do is, so as soon as this part is, for lack of better terms, pretty much good to go, and we're getting close here, it's going to be trying to slip this airframe over top of this. And we're going to have to sand the outside of the rings so that it does fit. So then once this thing is in there, then I can start to mock the main fins. So I mean, they're going to need to have a little bit of TLC done to them, as we show here. You gotta come this way. We can get them started in, but they're just a little bit large right there. So I mean, we're talking like a 32nd to a 64th of an inch, just a freaking hair. So we need to just shave them up a little bit. I mean, not even take them to the saw and cut them. Just sand the sides a little bit. Just remove the tiniest amount. And then then we can use that to get the 3 fins in. Not glue them or nothing like that. Just set them in so they're in there. But then that'll allow me to verify where I want to do for the bottom centering ring, the aft centering ring, since I have not glued that or done anything like that yet. So yeah, this is pretty good so far. Now let's see if what they say is true, where you can peel it. Yep. So there you go. There's a pile of almost dried epoxy. It's 99% of the percent there, and yeah, I mean, it's still sticky, but it's and pliable, all the other fun stuff. So just go ahead and throw that away. Come to our handy dandy little kid sock, wipe the hands off. Take another popsicle stick here and tap around. Now you can actually hear that whenever I'm tapping on this. It's actually not just sinking in or anything like that. It's actually acting like it's a tough surface. So now we can do our first test, which is to try to fit this on. And that one fit really well. Now this center one, it wants to use the old gut here for some bracing. So it wants to, but it's still a little bit of a tight fit. So we need to take and sand this one around just a little bit, just like we did with the inside. So, top one, that went on like a dream. See if it's 2 for 2. Yep. And this one still wants to be a little bit of a tight fit. So, now what we'll just do is go around and around a little bit. It's starting, but boy, is that tight. That's what she said. So, gotta work on it even more. Alright, let's see how this goes this time. Better, but it needs more work. Remember what I said earlier, it's better to do little bits at a time and do it lots of times than take out a big gouge and realize that you took too much out, because you want glue to stay up on these things whenever we go to slide them in. And if you put it, sand these things down too far to where there's a gap between the airframe and this, one, you lose structural integrity, and two, your glue's just going to run down and make a mess. Little bits, just little bits. But it's still tight. It's probably time for me to change the end on this guy too, because he ain't. You know what, let's do that, because he ain't doing much of anything in terms of sanding anymore. That end there has been abused. We got a few more of these things. Just take an El Momento to swap them. Basically, there's a little screw up here. Undo the screw. That relieves pressure off of the, whatever the heck you want to call this thing that actually holds it on. See if I can get this out without poking myself in the finger. And dropping everything. Come on, you. Which way do you want to go? Almost. It's not ready to give up yet. This little sanding wheel wants to sand more. Here we go. Alright, yeah, that guy is about as smooth as a bald tire. So, we'll shove that thing onto a new one here. Then the washer goes there. Sling it on down to here. Washer go there. Drop the screw. And I actually lost sight of that one, so that's even better. Alright, time for the age-old game of finding a tiny ass screw right there. I'm so glad I still got my eyesight. It's about the only thing on me that hasn't gone to shit yet. Screw that down. When you're screwing that down, the little rubber piece that this slides onto expands out, and that's how it stays on. Alright, let's throw those back into the box. And now we're going to need to be careful because this thing will sand. Yep. Now, unlike before, that actually kicks sawdust around. Sand dust. Yeah, smart. And so, yeah, definitely did some sanding on that one. All right. Just looking to see how it all looks all the way around. I think it looks good. Has that initial hang up, but that's okay. So with this thing basically sitting out like so, just gonna, and that's where I want it to sit. So we knew that we need to take a little bit off the fronts of this thing. One thing that I normally end up doing is on the airframe, I'll put a little number for each fin spot. And each fin will be labeled to a specific slot. That way, whenever I say, okay, this thing fits in slot number 3, which this one is, then, as you can see, I put a little 3 right here. Then, you know, I know that this will fit for that spot. Because there can be differences, very minute and stuff like that, but still. So, trying to bring this guy in, actually, and if I build this thing correctly, it goes in like so. So, no one can see it. Yay! We're going the wrong way. So, here we are. So this one fin's in here. The motor mount's sitting somewhat in here. So I'll grab this guy and we'll mark him as number 2. So number 2 is over here on this side with me. And so this one wants to be a little bit of a tight fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to graze this area. Just the littlest bit. Pops right on in. So then, number 1 obviously goes in number 1. Yay! That's a good fit right there. Most excellent fit. So now, bring it over here. We have basically, you know, the only thing we glued was the rings to the motor mount. The fins are just placed in there. They're just sitting in there against the motor mount. So if I take this thing, and it would still have some play and stuff like that. I mean, nothing's really ultra tight, but now if you look in here, I don't know, that might be able to come across. I'm trying to see the TV from here, but if you can, you see the back edges of the fins right here. So the question becomes, you know, a thought that I had in my mind was that this centering ring would be on the tube far enough to be touching the back edge of these fins. Just to be able to slap some more glue around and things like that, and have things a little more together on the bottom. But, and also just to see where this would line up at. And these things are doing an alright job of touching the airframe and stuff like that. There's still some TLC that will need to be done here and there. Basically, you know, get a good one, get it started, get it set, bring the other ones in, and you know, even after, you know, see how there's a little bit of a, let's see if I can get you a view. There's this tiniest gap right here. So I actually might need to take and trim, you know, the tabs just the tiniest bit, depending on, you know, where things are lining up at. But right now, I know that basically there, and there is where these things are ending up at. So we know these fins are actually pretty much good to go. So that's cool. And then likewise we can do the same thing with the little guys here. You know, pick a, so let's see, there's 2, 3, I bet it's over here, and 1. So what do we got over here? 3, yep. So for these pieces here, they go the other way, and they actually it's a little big, so 3 here needs to have a little bit of a sand down. Come on, there you go. Get in your home. Perfect. Number 2. A little bit more of the same thing. I think I'll do it for all of them. Damn, what the hell, let's knock out number 1. Alright. So number 2. Ooh. Easy number 2. There we go. Just, there's going to be some fine tuning that's going to need to be done. I might actually take and, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and hit this with the bandsaw real quick. dudes are good. Good, good, good. Plenty of room. That actually says 3, 2, and 3. Yep. Okay. I didn't mess up. I'm doing all right. Yeah, that fits in there really nice now. Same there. All right. Cooking with gas there. So then you can see here. That's how I can't remember what the name of these stupid little fins are. They're called, but that's what they be. So now we got those done. We can pull them back out. Because when it comes to gluing the fins, I need some different glue. So marking right about up there, it's not too bad. But here's a thing. This thing comes with a motor retention system. Basically, whenever you put a rocket motor in here, the force of it is propelling the whole thing up. So the engine is literally pushing itself into the rocket, so then that's why the whole rocket's going up. But there's an ejection charge. That's where the parachute comes out because of. When the ejection charge happens, it's blowing from the top, just like a gun. So the motor, if it's not secured in there, is going to spit out backwards, and then you lose your. The motor casing can drop out. If you're using reloadable motors, which actually use like aluminum style canisters with with pellets that go in and all this other stuff, that's expensive hardware, and you can lose that. So I wanted to see there's variable systems out there for retaining a motor. Let's see here. That's actually a further closure. That's so that's top. Let me double check something. I'll be right back. Alright. Nikes. I think some of my hardware might be with my dad. Go figure. But it's okay. Perfect. Hey, there he is. That's the guy I was looking for. He was just hidden inside another one. So, alright. So coming back, this is reloadable motor hardware. It's a anodized tube, has a 4-connect piece, just screws on. This end here holds gunpowder. That's the charge that's used. So the engine burns. Whenever the engine burns, it burns from the bottom and goes this way. And then there's a piece that goes in here that will basically burns at a certain rate, so that from the manufacturer they say, okay, this is a 10-second delay. So when your whole motor burns, it ignites this stuff. Then you have 10 seconds before it hits your gunpowder charge. So, just mocking this up real quick, because put this in the tube, and for this thing to actually retain a motor, this piece has to be dang near at the bottom. I don't know if I like that. So this piece belongs on this ring anyway, so let me pop this on. Oop. Again, dropping everything. Alright. And this is one of those good old-fashioned, what do they call them? T-hook, I think. You know, it's a little disc, and then there's teeth that sink into the wood. But to bring these things into the wood, that's probably has to get hammered on, kind of like a nail. Trip over that and kill myself. Almost. That's good. Good enough, I think, with a couple more whacks. Yep. That's not going anywhere. So then, comes with a little screw. And that little screw has a washer. Almost certain of it. So I can show it better if I take it out of the tube. Chunk. Alright. Turn this bad boy upside down. So, pounded that T-bolt into here. And so with it pointing out, it would be like this. And if I had a motor loaded into this, then I wanted to retain it with this. First thing is, I don't think I need a washer for this. So basically this Z would then, if this thing was positioned, which I bet you they want it on the very freaking end, because this thing is that way. Alright, then that would get screwed down. fits anything and everything you want to do with this screwdriver. Probably in the house. So, you. I think this guy is a good candidate. So then, screw this bad boy down. Tightens up. It'll be right in there. They went right on the very, very end there. So, like this. So this engine is now secured inside here. So whenever the main ejection charge comes shooting out of this, that force blasts this thing backwards. It stays inside the tube and I don't lose this expensive piece of hardware. So, cool on that. So I guess that's how it will end up. So, yep. Would have rather it be. Now, here's the thing. This is one way of retaining it. Another way is with a device like this. This is made by Public Missiles. It's called a hammer, highly adaptive motor retention. Basically, you leave 3/8 of your motor mount sticking out the bottom, and you glue this base on. And what it does is bring in another boy over here. What it does is then you have a screw-on cap, just like this. Your motor goes inside and then screws over top of it. And then it's in there. And you don't lose it. It's a good thing. This rocket has a damage. It needs a little fixing. I got the pieces I do believe to fix it. Just got to sit down and do it. And that's about the same with all my rockets anymore. Little bit of damage. So, with that, what I am going to do next is get this motor out of here and everything because it doesn't belong. And we're going to turn these guys like so. Let's see here, the eye hook. So part of hooking this thing up for the parachute cord, which was one of the next things that'll happen, be this little eye gets placed in here. Tomorrow, I gotta go pick up some paint for this rocket. I charged DJ with telling me what colors it was going to be painted and stuff, and well, he has done his part. So then this guy, another washer, and then a nut. I might see if I have a nylon nut to help tighten this thing down, but right now, just for purpose of showing, so just like so, now we have a spot for the parachute cord to connect to. But we're not going to do that quite yet. That'll be coming up because I want to get some Loctite for these pieces like that. Get that applied so it'll help keep things together. Come on. Get out of there, you. Alright. So a washer, and then a nut. Keeps all that together. And we can take and get that put in. And alright, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to glue in a little bit of the bottoms here, and then that'll be it for tonight. It's coming up on my kids' bedtime, so we're going to be doing that here. So let's see here, resin. It'll be just kind of the same thing. Square out a blob. Bring him over there. Come on, hardener. This stuff smells like a hair salon, like some old lady's been stuck inside one of those hair dryers for a while. You know what smell I'm talking about. Alright. I think we'll be good there. Get our caps put back on. Our good old-fashioned popsicle stick. And mix these two things up. Mix, mix, mix. Neat thing about epoxy too. Most glues do this. When you mix these things together, they generate heat. Sometimes they get pretty dang warm. Alright. So just like when we did the other side, except we can't move it, but we're just going to glob some up above it because it's going to run down. So just coming across. Getting some applied here. You can come back, and if there's any excess along the top edges, you can grab those and pull it around. Made it to the other side already. Let's just fill some gaps. Move some glue around. Doesn't take much. But you don't want just a tiny bit either. You basically want it to pull up on the tube, and then the excess runs down, and that creates a thick ring that basically adheres the glue to the plywood and then also to the tube, and basically makes it into all one piece at that point. Then we'll do the same to the bottom. Just start slapping some glue up there. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just tiny bits. Spread it around and let it fall down. And also this glue is runny enough that there is a little gap between your centering ring and the airframe. It'll run down in there. And that will kind of seal that all up. And also, since the one side's been done already, that'll act as a catch, so the stuff doesn't run out. It actually will end up hitting the other side of your glue and stay in place. So I'm just running around bringing it up. Try to clean it up a little bit. There was a little string that I tried to get over the side here. There's no biggie. And then we just let this stay upright. And as you can hopefully see, again, it's shadow fun time. But here up on the sides and things like that, or even over here, there's a little bit of a bead going all the way around of this epoxy. And somewhere in here it will become visible. So now that we have that done, we can take and wait a few minutes for that 5 minutes to dry on that side. And then that'll be kind of the last bits to do for this evening, because it's coming up on time for me to start helping getting the kid ready for bed. But we're going to wait for this stuff to dry up first. While we do that, alright. Now, we have all that done. We got the bottom center ring pretty much ready. We're going to need to make sure that it actually fits into the airframe, which it does, but very tightly. So, shit. While we're waiting on that glue, that's something I can do real quick. Yeah, world of difference having a new sanding disc makes. So let's see, just from the hand. Looks good. And actually what we can do, there's a little bit of a ridge inside here, and I think that's causing the problems. Bye-bye ridge. Yep, that'll work good. And as we can see, there's not a gigantic ass gap between the ring and the airframe. So everything will be sealed inside that thing good. So we know it goes on the motor mount proper up at this point. We know our fins fit. We have 2 of the 3 center rings glued into place, which the epoxy is pretty much dried up. So, another popsicle stick for the trash can. We'll let the rest of that dry up. Might be able to pull it off tomorrow. Then, still a little sticky. That's alright. So cool. Some progress. Got another kit showing up tomorrow that I will build after I finish this one. That one's going to be more involved. The design is simple, but it actually is going to house electronics. And having to build the sled, the ejection charge canisters, things like that. So that'll be interesting to get done. But for right now, this is looking pretty good. Got both sides, tops and bottoms of the centers here. They're all glued up. So these things are not going anywhere at this point. They are married to this tube. So just let that hang out from there. Then next step will be with the tube that actually the foam camera is sitting on top of. That's going to get mounted into the bottom of this tube with the nose cone. Nose cone shear pins will be put in four directions. That'll keep the nose cone secured on this tube, and then this coupler piece over here will go into this guy and will have this bulkhead glued into it. And then the parachute will basically sit in here. So motor mount and everything will be inside here. This section here will hold the parachute. The charge happens, it pops this whole top piece off. This top piece will pull the parachute and all the shock cord and everything out, and as long as nothing stupid's going on, the parachute opens up and it falls to the ground happy. So that is how we're going to build this guy. And because I mean, one day you could change it up to do some different configurations. You know, payload bay, you could put other things in there. You know, you could take and attach this thing and shoot some shear pins in there and not have an ejection charge, but build an electronics bay up in here. It says, hey, when it's time, parachute, come out. You know, all sorts of good stuff. So, but the other rocket that's coming, that's what we're going to concentrate on it with. That's what its job will be. Alright, so with that, we're done with some of the rocket stuff today. I'm going to go ahead and kill the stream and get inside, get the kid to bed, and get geared up to play some video games, I think. So if anyone stopped by, thanks for stopping by. We didn't have any chats, so that was a bummer. Actually, if I would have had my brain working right, I would have done some other things to have some viewer counts go up, but hey, I don't care. It is what it be. So, alright, I will see anyone and everyone later on. Thanks.